Well, thanks for checking out Local Three's podcast, Breaking Ground, where we discuss all things labor, labor politics, history, and organizing as it relates to Operating Engineers Local 3, the largest construction trades local in North America, with a current membership of about 39,000. You can find this podcast and more on our official YouTube page, and you can also download the audio-only version through Buzzsprout. It's also available on the Apple Podcast app and Spotify. I'm happy to have on the show today with us Burlingame District Rep Trustee Charley Lavery, who oversees the union members and staff within Marin, San Francisco, and San Mateo counties. Well, Charley, welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Hi, Mandy. Yeah, it's good to be here. Really appreciate you and what the PR department do for Local 3, getting the information out to our membership, keeping them informed. It's a great job.
Well, first, tell us a little bit about yourself. Our audience is going to recognize that you have a unique accent. So tell us where you're from, Charley.
Well, I would say that everybody else has an accent, but I did grow up in England and Ireland. My family were Irish. They were living in England when I was born, and they moved back when I was a teenager. My dad he worked in power plants in the UK, and he became a small contractor as I got older. And he had a couple of cranes, and I got to learn how to run cranes. When I was on breaks from school, he threw me in the cab. Well, he didn't throw me in, but so I got to learn this skill at a very young age. And I later moved to New York and then to San Francisco, which is a common path for Irish immigrants at that time. There were very few opportunities in Ireland and England. It was the years of Margaret Thatcher. Ronald Reagan was in power in the US, so there was a lot of anti-union sentiment. So for that opportunity to make money, to have a decent job, I moved to the US.
Well, it takes a lot of courage to do that. Were you the only family member out of your household to immigrate?
I was the only one in my family. My siblings are all settled in England and Scotland and Ireland, but I was not the only one of my generation. There was a mass exodus of people who were looking for economic opportunity.
So you started in New York, and what was that like?
It was tough. I had been certified as a crane operator in Europe in 1986. That credential wasn't recognized when I went to New York, so I ended up working in the underground economy.
What does that mean, the underground economy?
The underground economy is, well, it's non-union to start off with. Often uses undocumented labor. I was documented, but there's no set working day. There's no set working rules. My first job was $50 a day, and the day was of variable length. So some days 8 hours, some days 10 hours, but it was $50 a day.
So you were basically just exploited because you
I
were
was
an
exploited, yeah, and sometimes by other Irish Americans.
Which wasn't that uncommon.
No, I think it was a common experience for immigrants.
So you're in New York and you're like, I'm getting out of here. Why? What was the decision to move to the West, specifically San Francisco?
I had a girlfriend at the time, and
It's always about a girl.
She had she had family in San Francisco. Her father was a veteran. He had fought in the Korean War. So she had a path to citizenship, and she wanted to move out to San Francisco, and I moved with her.
Okay, so you moved out to San Francisco to follow your girlfriend. And what were you doing for work at that time?
So at that time, I continued to work in the underground economy because I thought my opportunities were limited. And then I met some of the local contractors, and they learned that I had crane credentials. And one of those contractors gave me an opportunity in 1998 to join the union, and that's when I met Carl Goff, who was a rep in San Francisco at that time, and it was a great opportunity. it was transformational for me. It was a game changer.
You were suddenly getting a wage that was far greater than $50 a day
Right.
with benefits, and you had union representation. And you said that union had a very different meaning in Ireland for you. But now here in the United States, what did it mean to you at that time in 1998 when you joined?
Well, the unions in Europe didn't have a negotiated wage necessarily, but they did have like conditions and overtime provisions. For me, in 1998, my income doubled. I had benefits. I had my first daughter around that time, so yeah, it was a game changer. I walked down the street with my head held high. I had, I had benefits. I had real health insurance. I was making real money, so I really appreciated that, and I got involved immediately in the union activities. Whenever the union called and let me know there was a meeting or they needed volunteers, my answer was always yes, because I really appreciated the change that it had made in my life.
Okay, so you were operating cranes at this point for the union. What were some of the jobs that you worked on while you were in the city?
Yeah, my first job with Local 3 was operating a crane for one of the local contractors who'd given me that opportunity. That's when I met Carl Goff. So I ran cranes for that contractor. I worked on the Four Seasons Hotel in San Francisco. I was the first operator on that project. I worked on BART to SFO. That was a cut and cover tunnel. I ran a crane on that project for about 4 years. I worked on the retrofit of the Golden Gate Bridge. That was another 4-year project. And I worked on sewer and underground projects in the city of San Francisco. So I learned about that aspect of operating engineer work. In 2006, I had an injury snowboarding, and I injured my shoulder, and I was out for a few weeks. And then the surgery that I had to repair my rotator cuff failed, and I had a second surgery. So I was out of work for several months, and that was at the same time that events were happening in Local 3, and I was kind of following what was happening. I was very involved. I was going to union meetings. I was volunteering, and a group had formed within Local 3 that kind of aligned with my own ideas about transparency and integrity, and that was the gold ticket. So I was off work. I had time available, and I got involved in that campaign, that election campaign. And because of my injury, I wasn't sure that I was going to be able to get back out in the field. And in late 2006, I got an opportunity to work as an apprenticeship coordinator for Local 3.
For the Burlingame District?
Yeah, I came on staff December of 2006.
So what did your duties entail as an apprenticeship coordinator?
I had a great experience as an apprenticeship coordinator for Local 3. It was a very satisfying job. I learned there are 2 ways to grow a union, and that is by organizing and by training. Of course, the apprenticeship focuses on training, so that was one aspect of the job, which I really enjoyed. But I also enjoyed, and one of the highlights for me was getting out in front of underserved communities and trying to get candidates for the apprenticeship and sharing with those folks my own experience as an immigrant, as somebody who didn't think I was going to have that opportunity, as a single father, and the challenges I had faced, and letting them know that this opportunity was available to them, and that Local 3 was looking for the right people to do this work, and seeing the light go on in some of those people's eyes. And some of those folks were from families, men and women, who had no experience of union construction or construction period, and never thought that this opportunity was out there for them. So very satisfying, a very rewarding part of the job.
You changed their lives in that moment. You gave them an option that they maybe hadn't thought about, and they could relate to you as well because you had been through it yourself.
Yeah, I think I'm very fortunate. I've been on staff for 16 years now, and some of those people that I took in, that I interviewed as pre-apprentices, are still out there, with good careers. Some of them are superintendents. Some of them have started their own companies. They've raised families, and I've seen that all happen and been part of that. And they've been part of my story too.
So how long did you stay as the apprenticeship coordinator in Burlingame?
I only worked 1 year as the apprenticeship coordinator. As I say, it was very satisfying, but I got a phone call one day from Alameda that said, we're going to need a business agent in San Francisco. Are you interested? And just like when I was a volunteer, when I was out in the field, the answer was yes. Yes, the union needs something, then I want to give back because the union had given so much to me.
So you're kind of like, you have led your life so far as kind of the yes, I will help type of person. I mean, being involved in the union, sort of the back end, going to the meetings, participating. It sounds like those are all the right things for our listeners. If you're interested in perhaps joining the Local 3 staff, the first way to do that is to get involved in district meetings, going to picnics, going to semi-annuals, and that's your story. So when they said, hey, we need this, you were like, okay, I'm there.
That's right, Mandy. I think I understood from the beginning that Local 3 and unions in general are just workers. We are operating engineers working for other operating engineers, organizing folks so that we have a collective voice. And I'd like to pass that on to our members in the field, and just remind them that I'm an operating engineer. I spent years out in the field running equipment. I understand the challenges we face, and let them know that a career in Local 3 is accessible to them.
You were in the field, then you were an apprenticeship coordinator, and now you're a business agent for one of the largest districts within Local 3's jurisdiction. What was that shift like for you? Because now you're a business agent in the field.
What I saw, Mandy, and why I was motivated was I saw that unions could affect change for working people. And when I got the opportunity to become a business agent and have a little more impact and work with our journeymen, I saw it as an opportunity to affect more change. And that's always been my goal as a staff member for Local 3, is to have the maximum beneficial impact for our members, for our rank and file, because that's the strength of our union, is our membership. And I've been fortunate enough to work with an administration that totally recognizes that, and with a staff and district staff that supports me doing that.
So you were able to now reach journey level operators in a way, maybe in their career where they hadn't thought about the union, the level of getting involved. And so you're now, you're sharing the same story, but to an operator who's maybe at a different point in their lives. And did you share unionism with them? And then did some of those members show up at meetings because of you?
That's right, Mandy. I hope some of them did show up because of me. But yeah, we have a very diverse membership. We have a very large geographical area that we cover. Our members come from a lot of different places. But trying to communicate to them and get the information to them so that they could make up their own minds to get involved in the union. I think one of the biggest challenges we face as an organization and as a movement is member engagement, and having members see the relevance of their own actions. And just like as an apprenticeship coordinator, seeing the light go on, sometimes the light goes on with journeymen when they recognize the impact they can have. And that's one of the beauties of this country, is that democracy makes policy accessible to everyone. And as a union, we have a collective voice. As a member of Local 3, you're a part of that voice. And having a journeyman realize that we're not a corporation that makes decisions for the membership. We are an organization of workers who collectively do what's best for us and for our members. and having journeymen recognize that they can impact that by getting to a district meeting, by talking to their union reps, by sharing their concerns, and by getting informed about the political environment is, again, just really satisfying part of the job.
Well, they can make changes, but they have to participate in the process, is what you're saying.
That's right. Suit up and show up.
So you've lived in the Bay Area since, what did you say, 1990?
1993.
So how do you feel about the city after all this time? Do you consider it home now? Or is Ireland home? Is England home? Maybe you're divided on that.
No, San Francisco is home. I've got two daughters, 21 and 23. I don't think they're going to leave the Bay Area, and this is home for me. I got my wife and family here, and yeah, I do consider San Francisco home now.
What do you think sets San Francisco apart?
San Francisco is such a diverse city with such a lot of history. It's always been welcoming and inclusive. It's a small city. It's densely populated. It's only 7 miles by 7 miles. And things are so accessible. It's easy to make an impact in San Francisco. If you live there, you know every neighborhood in the city. So it's small, and it has this fascinating history from the gold rush, the Barbary Coast, the general strike in the 30s, Haight-Ashbury, the LGBTQ community. So a lot of history, a lot of political history, and it's been a very welcoming city for me.
So Charlie, how does the labor movement in San Francisco fit together?
I think the labor movement and San Francisco are a natural fit. We talked about the diversity in San Francisco and the minority groups and so many people looking for a voice. And the labor movement offers that voice to so many groups.
Can you recall some of the larger buildings or structures that Local 3 members either built or are currently working on right now?
Yeah, Local 3 has been part of so many iconic projects in San Francisco. The Golden Gate Bridge, the shipyards that built the ships for the Second World War, the recovery from the Loma Prieta earthquake in 1989, the construction of BART, the Bay Area Rapid Transit System, the new ballpark. We've got Oracle Park. It's changed its name a few times, but we have the Giant Stadium that was built during my time. We have the Warriors Arena, the new Bay Bridge. We had the Golden Gate retrofit that I was part of. The SFPUC reconstructed the water system from San Francisco all the way to Hetch Hetchy in the Sierra. And they're now working on the water system the wastewater system improvement plan. And these are multi-million dollar projects that Local 3 are part of. Right now we have Treasure Island happening. We have Hunters Point Shipyard happening. They are multi-billion dollar projects. We just completed the Transbay Terminal, and we're starting work on the downtown extension, which will be part of the country's first high-speed rail system. So a lot of historic projects that Local 3 have been central to.
Local 3's had a hand in all of that all along the way.
And not just in the construction, but in getting those projects through the political process and entitled and making them reality, making dreams reality.
Well, in speaking of that, you've touched on some of the Bay Area's labor history, but get us up to speed on what's currently going on in your district and how that's impacting the membership.
Some of the projects that are coming up for Local 3 include the Embarcadero seawall replacement, which will be a huge multi-billion project, very intensive work for the operating engineers. It's going to replace all of the seawall that extends from Aquatic Park in the city to the ballpark right in front of the ferry building. That project is moving forward. We're also involved in the downtown extension, which will be a project that connects high-speed rail to the Transbay Terminal in San Francisco. Personally, I'm in the process of being appointed to the Metropolitan Transportation Commission Policy Advisory Committee, which is central to the work that OE3 does, building transportation infrastructure. I'm also going to be a delegate to the California Democratic Party for Assembly Member Mark Berman. So lots going on. This week, I and the staff of District 1 have been given a class at City Build, which is a pre-apprenticeship program that we've participated in San Francisco. So very busy, a lot of things going on.
Well, and that's in addition to your regular tasks, which is, managing this large district and all of these many moving parts. We just came out from a very big political year last year. Talk about some of the efforts that you made during the political season last year.
So 2022 was a very busy year in San Francisco. In a 12-month period, we had four election cycles. So we were dealing with some election fatigue amongst the electorate. We got very involved in the campaign to elect Matt Haney to the California Assembly. Matt had shown that he was a good friend to Labor, that he understood our concerns. And what I look for in a political candidate is an interest in what we do, not just an interest in what we can do for them, but what our concerns are, getting educated about what operating engineers do, what about the work they do, the challenges they face. And Matt asked those questions. I recognized that. The building trades were a little slow. The Building Trades Council were a little slow to recognize that. But I took a lead role in that and formed an independent expenditure with the Retail Clerks Union, helped get him elected to the California Assembly. And then in November, we had a Measure L, which was a funding measure for transportation infrastructure. It funds every agency that runs through San Francisco. So it's really a regional measure. BART, Caltrans, Caltrain, all the bus systems. And the downtown extension was also part of that, high-speed rail. So in a year when every transportation infrastructure measure in the state failed, and when a measure in San Francisco, Measure A, had already failed in June, it was a very unfavorable atmosphere to try and pass
Another measure, another tax.
Measure on transportation. Yeah. Even the measure sponsor was very pessimistic. But given the slowdown that I saw in vertical construction, I thought this was a must-win measure for Local 3. And I asked to become the campaign co-chair, and we raised $1.7 million for the campaign. And it passed 72% to 28%. And it was the only major transportation infrastructure measure in the state that passed in 2022.
That's a big accomplishment for you. I don't know how you have time to breathe, Charlie, with all of this going on. Speaking of that, people are rarely keen on passing, taxes. Tell us a little bit about the political climate of your district. It's complicated.
The political climate of San Francisco is notorious across the country, right? I think it's a catchphrase, San Francisco politics, Nancy Pelosi, San Francisco politics. So it's definitely a hotbed of politics. It's a very democratic city, but within that democratic city, there are a lot of conflicts between moderates and progressives. There's a lot of political infighting. People like to say bare knuckle politics, or politics in San Francisco are a blood sport. But as a result of that, we have some very, very competent elected officials that come out of there, including Governor Gavin Newsom, Vice President Kamala Harris, Nancy Pelosi, Dianne Feinstein, Willie Brown. So it's really been a great incubator for good political leaders. And because of the solid tax base and the support of labor, those people have been a great voice for working people.
It's very expensive to live in these counties. I know that a lot of members travel from all over our jurisdiction to get work on these projects, but tell us about the local San Francisco members. Are they crane operators? Are they surveyors? Are they public employees? Like, what's the majority of the local Burlingame District members? What do they do?
District 1 has a really diverse membership. We have operators, mechanics, crane operators, surveyors. One of the specialty jobs in San Francisco is the underground utilities. Because of the seismic activity there, we are constantly replacing the sewer system. So that's, there's a high proportion of utility operators within the city. And because the city is an older city on the West Coast, there are a lot of things in the ground that are unmapped. So it's a really high-skilled job to be able to dig in the streets of San Francisco and not break lines and not create more work.
Some of the members are probably longtime generations of San Franciscans, people who have lived there, whose parents have lived there. I mean, do you find that to be true?
Yeah. Well, as you know, San Francisco and San Mateo counties are among the most expensive places in the United States to live and to own a house. So unless you grew up there or your family's from there, it's very difficult to acquire property there. It's very expensive to acquire property there. So a lot of our members have to face the commute and travel in from the Valley, Northern California, to access the work. If you are willing to pay the rent or pay the mortgages that it takes to live in San Francisco and San Mateo County, you do enjoy the benefit of not spending hours on the road to get to work. So that's the trade-off that many of our members, the question many of our members have to ask themselves is, do they want a larger house and a longer commute, or a smaller house and a short commute?
Well, there's no question, Charlie, that you have done a lot in your career as an operating engineer. But can you name a few of the things you're proudest of achieving as a district rep or an agent?
That's a good question, Mandy, and there's a lot to unpack in 16 years. I think I have to start by saying the way that Local 3 have handled the pandemic. I'm so proud of that. From business manager Dan Redding down through the officers, the staff, and above all, the membership of Local 3. I know we all worked really hard to keep construction open, to keep our members working, and we were able to do that. And as a result, we're a service craft. We run cranes for other crafts. We run the hoists for other crafts. We were able to keep so many people in construction working, keep their families healthy, keep their benefits active. And that's something that Local 3 did, and we took a central role in that. We made the phone calls to our elected officials. We wrote letters telling them, hey, you've got to make us essential workers. And we were heard.
In many ways, our industry wasn't impacted financially in the way that so many were. I mean, we didn't really see that much of a decline in our work hours where, some people had to just completely find other work or, businesses shut down. You're right. That's a testimony of kind of the strength and forward thinking that we have in this organization. It also helped us in some ways to figure out how to do things differently. In terms of staying relevant, and a lot of our social media came out of that time because we needed to be able to connect and educate and communicate to the members that when we couldn't see them face to face. I mean, you could write a book, I think, just on your life and the courage that you had in, being an immigrant, leaving your family, coming out here, making a difference, making a social difference, helping other people's lives, raising a family, leading this district. What are you proudest of achieving in your life, Charlie? That's another big question.
Well, there are other things in my job that I'm really proud of, Mandy, and I'm proud as a member of Local 3 because all of these things were done with a team, right, with an organization. I'm proud of being part of a team that helped generate multi-billion-dollar projects for our members, and that will continue into the future. I'm proud of writing several training grants that were funded by the SFPUC that allowed Local 3 to get GPS equipment and to get a crane simulator for the district office so that our local members can come in and hone their skills without having to travel to the training center. I'm proud of Local 3's involvement in pre-apprenticeships, and I've talked a little bit about that, about getting out in front of communities, underserved communities, and letting them know about the opportunities that OE3 has for them. And we need people, so it helps Local 3, and it's very satisfying to get those, to let people know about those opportunities. And I'm really proud that as an organization, we've been able to elevate the role of Local 3 in San Francisco politics. And that's been with the help of the political department and the foresight of the administration, the business manager, and the officers.
What's the hardest thing about being a union tradesperson in San Francisco?
Well, I have to say the hardest thing is probably the cost of living.
Yeah.
Yeah, the cost of housing in San Francisco and San Mateo is almost out of reach, even for people in the highest paying union jobs. It's still very difficult. That's partly a result of the tech boom. Tech has generated a lot of work for our membership, but it's also driven up the cost of real estate on the peninsula, San Francisco and San Mateo. So very challenging, but for our members who were able to buy a house there or are able to afford the rent there, they enjoy the benefit of not having to spend hours on the road or commuting or crossing bridges, and they can go drive 20 minutes and work on a tech or a biotech campus, because they're the things that are still being built in San Mateo County. They can drive into San Francisco and work on the many infrastructure projects that we have going there.
So, Charlie, you've accomplished a lot in your life, whether it's your role in this career, but what are you proudest of achieving in your life in general?
I think raising my two daughters has probably been my greatest achievement. But personally and with Local 3, I had the opportunity to go to Harvard, which was just an unbelievable experience to work with other trade unionists from around the world and across the country, and to be given that opportunity again. That's the theme of my story with Local 3. I've been given opportunity after opportunity.
I think one of the challenges of our organization is kind of maintaining the type of trade unionism passion that you have. And do you think they're out there? Do you think there's the younger generation out there who embraces unionism with the same kind of passion that you have?
I think there's definitely a new passion for unions among young people. I think as information is more readily available, we're in the information age. Young people are much more aware of the benefits that unions provide. And they're aware of the security that unions can provide. So we have a pension, we have health insurance, and through information technology, they're able to compare those with what the non-union have, They're also able to learn about the political voice that unions give people. And there's just this much greater awareness among today's younger people.
Well, what can we as an organization do to teach younger people about the labor movement and the importance of unions? Because there's going to be a big exodus of, sorry, but your generation retiring. We see that, and we need to be able to fill those seats. What can we do to teach young people about this as not just a career, but a passion and a movement?
We can let young people know that there is a strong future for unions, that unions have the power to change lives and to change policy. Strong unions can lift working conditions and wages for all workers. So not just the people in unions, but what unions do impact all workers. And to let young people know and to keep reinforcing that unions are relevant now.
Well, any parting thoughts for our viewers today, Charlie?
Yeah, I think it's critical for everyone in the labor movement, and that includes all union members, to realize that the level of engagement that they take in their union and that the actions and steps they take today will impact their future prosperity and the prosperity of their families and our union.
I mean, it sounds like you're involved in everything possible, and you probably don't sleep very much. How are you able to fit all this in a normal day?
Well, that's a good question, Mandy. I try and take care of my health. I think that's important for all our members to remember that. You know, we're in stressful jobs, stay healthy, exercise, try and eat healthy. And I also have a beautiful wife who's very patient and tolerates my travel and the long hours I work. And she's always supportive and understands that I'm trying to do this for the best possible reasons. And my kids too, they've been patient, and they've been to more union meetings than many of our members. So members, get yourself to some meetings.
Well, thank you, Charlie, for joining us today. We could have talked for hours just about kind of your childhood, your history, your past. You're clearly a passionate activist for labor, and you've made a huge difference in your district and the organization as a whole. So we appreciate you. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Mandy. I'm just part of a team.